Okay, here's our pressure regulator. This is where you adjust your air pressure going into the machine. As you can see, we have it set for about 80 pounds. Here's our emergency release button. You press this when you want to release the press at any time. And we have two temperature controllers. We have the top heat temperature controller, which controls the top heat. And we have the bottom heat temperature controller, which controls the bottom heat. We also have two timers, as you can see here. We have the main press time. This is the amount of time that the press will stay pressed. And then we have a heat off timer. And this timer allows us to set the time to when we actually want the heat to shut off. As we see right now, both the top heat and the bottom heat are rising in temperature. We just turned it on. Here we have some indicating lights. We show here that the heat is on. We have a green indicating light to indicate when the output for your cooling fluid valve is on. And here we have a main heat bypass. So at any time at all, you just want to shut the heat off completely. Even while it's still pressing, we can just switch that switch off and it just cuts the heat off, period. The machine itself has a large bore air cylinder, and here is your tool and jig plate with your machined holes. Again, that's on the top and the bottom. Mirror finish. The machine has two activate buttons. We have one on the left and one on the right of the machine. And in the back of the machine, here's our main guide rod to keep our top heat from rotating. Here's our main 220 volt single phase cord, and we gave you this this output cord clamp here, and that's where your cordage or your wires will enter into the machine to be able to tap into that output for your coolant MAC valve or your coolant water valve. And of course, here's the other side of the machine with your main air inlet and of course your other activate push button. So here's the machine in its entirety. And just a quick look inside here. We have our fusing for your top and bottom heat. And if we look over here, we can actually see this bus bar, this wire bus bar. And marked at the very base of the bus bar, there's two positions that have marked MAC. It's those two positions where you'll be able to get your power for your coolant MAC valve. And again, this is a 220 volt machine, so we're sending out 220 volts out to your coolant MAC valve. And it's on those two positions that are marked MAC directly across from them. You have one hot leg and one neutral. Those two wires, just to make sure that you get the right two, we've identified those two wires with the number 66. So if we can, Ned, let's go ahead and activate the machine. And again, Ned's just going to press the two buttons momentarily, and the press is coming down. The press will be making contact. Now as you see here, both timers were activated, both the press time and the heat off time. I just set this up as an example. And as you can see, the heat will shut off at a sooner period of time. And as we reach down to that 0 point, as you can see here, the heat was shut off. And at this point, your coolant fluid indicator light's on. And of course, at this point, that's when you're going to get that output out of 66 neutral and 66 hot across from where it says MAC. That's the point where your valve, your coolant valve, will be engaged. The main pressing time is still counting down, as you can see. And again, these are very easily adjustable. The press releases, both timers, as you can see, return back to their original setting. And as you can see, the heat has been turned back on. And of course, we're ready for another activation. To set the temperature for either the top or the bottom, you simply press the temp button. As you see here, we have 300 degrees Fahrenheit. You can increase it or decrease it at will. And then once you have the temperature setting you'd like, you press the temp button again to lock it in. And to set your time, you just simply use your up or down arrows. And it will hold that time period forever and ever until you've changed it. And again, that's the same for the bottom heat as well. One key thing to note, to get the press to actually press, the pressing time, this top controller needs to be on in order for the machine to work, because this is the timer that controls the pressing of the machine. And there's your 951 custom top and bottom heat machine with thermal cooling output.